Hello, my name is Dimitri Prosper. I'm a technical sales specialist with IBM. Today I will speak to you about IBM Forms. IBM Forms address the document-centric requirement when an electronic form needs to look very much like a traditional paper form. It also needs to provide for high-fidelity printing, and this electronic form needs to include digital signature capabilities. The document is going to need to be retained for business compliance purposes. Making the document immutable is also very critical. So that's where our signature capabilities comes in. This is a requirement that is typically found in finance, government, regulated industries, as well as university environments. IBM Forms is the architecture of an IBM form is an XFTL file. So it's a document that can be used and routed either via email or through a business process system. This provides the ability to generate very dynamic form where a user can interact with the form and see elements on the form as they select options available within the form. We can also integrate with the backend systems like the IBM FileNet technology. This is what a traditional form would look like. At the top, you see the presentation, so it makes the document looks very much like a paper form. However, embedded within this document, all the behaviors of the document are included. So if somebody needs to have certain pop-ups, or you need to show and hide elements on the page based on user selection, as well as drop-down lists. So for example, selecting the state that you lived in from a drop-down list, all those components are embedded within that form. We also provide the ability for data validation before it gets submitted. So all the data validation components can be done right there on the form before the form is submitted to the backend system. Then we overlay on top of that the ability to provide digital signatures. You can have multi-layer signatures, multiple individuals can sign the document. And then finally, attachments can also be included as needed. This is the IBM Forms Designer. This tool is what is used to create the form that will be provided to the end user. We will walk through some details on how to create a form with IBM Forms Designer in a few minutes. The web form server is what is used to present the form to the end user. So the XFTL format that was generated with the designer is then placed on the web form server, and the web form server does the rendering. It takes the XFTL and generates HTML that is used by the mobile device or the browser on the laptop or desktop to view the file, fill the file, and submit the file. Finally, the integration with FileNet is something that we built into the product. So when you install FileNet, you can also install what we call a P8 integrator that does the integration with FileNet that allows for when a form is submitted to be stored into FileNet and be included as part of the business process. Let's take a look at the Web Forms Designer and take a look how we can create a form very quickly. So as a business user or potentially an IT developer, I will create a form by simply selecting File, New IBM Form. I get a choice from templates if I have templates that I want to use. Otherwise, I can create a very generic blank form where I can add the components that I need. When I open the blank form, there's an option on the left-hand side for the palette. The palette shows me all the different elements that I can add to my page. I can add an entry field, so I will add one here, and I will double-click on it to bring up the Properties window. In the Properties window, I can set the height, the font colors, as well as the actual font that is used, and I can also set a label. So this label is going to be the first name field. I'm going to add a second entry field, and this field is going to be for the last name. So I'll set the label to last name. Now I want to line these up very quickly, so I will just move this around and I get a guide to show me where to line it up perfectly. I can even use my mouse if needed, or my cursor on my keyboard to move the items around on the page. I will add a date selector. And in the date selector, I want to set the label to be date of birth. Now, my next item is to add a drop down. And in the drop down, I'm going to just ask the user to enter their state. So I'm going to set the label appropriately. And as far as the drop down choices, I will just add a few states in here. So New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. So now let's take a look at what this form would look like to the end user. So I can go quickly at the bottom and pick my web form server. Again, that's the engine that's going to take this form and transform it into HTML to be viewed from a web browser. So I get to take a sneak peek as what the form would look like. So I click on this and I can see my form is entered. So I can fill in my name and I can pick my date of birth and pick my state. And that's really it. It's very simple to build a form and add it to the web form server for somebody to view the form. Now let's take a look at some other forms that were pre-built prior to this demonstration. So I will go to my web form server and I'll bring up this HTML page. So this is a bank page where the user is allowed to dispute a credit card charge. So this is all done through the web browser, and they are able to click on a particular link and they get the form to fill out. So they can enter, for example, their credit card information, but there's some validation that happens automatically based on the user entering the information. So we can do all that when you build a form in IBM Designer. So again, these are the drop-downs options that we showed earlier. So I'm going to go ahead and pre-fill the form with data that I have in the system already. And I will move on to the next stage. In the next stage, we had a table that was added. So in this table, I can have a lookup option where I can pick from a backend system. So there's a backend system that provides all the credit card information, all the transactions that I've had in the past. And I can pick the various transactions that I want to dispute, and I will add them to this table. These tables are very dynamic, so I can remove certain rows or I can add additional rows as needed. Now, the dynamic capabilities that we showed that we could, that we talked about that we could show is when you select checkboxes. So as I select certain elements on the page, I get prompted for more information. So if I didn't select this piece, it wouldn't show to me. So I get prompted for additional information, and I can even include attachment if necessary. I will not attach a file for this particular demonstration. And again, I will pre-fill all the data that's needed in here. Let's go to the next page. So finally, there's the ability to provide the electronic signature. So again, I'm going to pre-fill some data, and now I get the option to sign the form. So I can sign the form using my mouse, which is a little bit difficult, but if I had a tablet device, it might be easier to use my finger for it. But this is simply a choice. I chose to have a signature that is using the mouse or the finger to draw the signature, but it could have simply been an I accept button, or it could have been something that they need to provide an actual digital certificate. It's really a choice. Now, one of the options that we have is this was a wizard that took me through the steps of filling out the form. However, I want to see what the form would look like from a print standpoint. So I can click on this link, and it shows me what the traditional paper form would look like. And I can print this form, or I can save it if needed. So this is how a form is generated with IBM Forms Experience Builder and then eventually presented on the IBM Web Form server. When I submit this form, it can be stored in any backend system that's desired, like the IBM FileNet or IBM Case Manager. Thank you for your time.